On opposite sides of the Pacific, American and Japanese engineers chased the same dream, outboard supremacy, but their visions couldn't have been more different. Mercury's infamous Lake X torture tests built a legend on brute power and risk, while Yamaha's relentless Kaizen culture quietly redefined what reliability could mean. By the early 1990s, these competing philosophies collided in courtrooms and on the water, with consequences still echoing today. What happened in this high-stakes rivalry changed global boating forever, and the real story behind the shocking difference between American and Japanese outboards goes far deeper than horsepower. What forces built these engines, and what finally tipped the balance? Yamaha's outboards didn't roar their way into the world. They arrived quietly, shaped by a culture that saw every bolt and bearing as a reflection of national character. In the early 1960s, Junichi Kawakami pushed Yamaha beyond pianos and motorcycles, insisting that marine engines could be more than just machines. They could be promises kept. Every assembly line worker was expected to spot flaws, tweak methods, and hand off a product that wouldn't just run, but endure. This wasn't marketing spin. Kaizen, the doctrine of continuous improvement, meant engines were torn down after hours of testing, inspected for microscopic wear, then rebuilt and tested again. The goal? Engines that never surprised, except for how little they demanded from their owners. By the time the first Yamaha outboard shipped overseas, their reputation for quiet operation and relentless reliability was already spreading. Dealers in Southeast Asia and Australia reported engines running for thousands of hours with nothing more than oil changes and the occasional impeller swap. In the U.S., boaters used to the drama of breakdowns and roadside repairs started to notice something different. These Japanese machines just worked. Manuals emphasized routine, not rescue. Service intervals were measured in seasons, not weekends. A retired Yamaha engineer remembers the daily factory ritual. Each morning began with a team huddle, discussing yesterday's defects and how to eliminate them. Every worker, from machinist to inspector, could stop the line if something felt off. This wasn't about chasing perfection for its own sake. It was about honoring a shared responsibility. If a single outboard failed, the whole team felt it. That sense of collective pride bled into every product. Engines were designed to be light, easy to service, and almost impossible to kill. Even the paint was tested for saltwater resistance, with panels dunked and dried in endless cycles until the finish could withstand years at sea. Honda and Suzuki followed similar paths. Honda's outboards borrowed from their legendary car engines, prioritizing smoothness and efficiency over flash. Suzuki's engineers experimented with lean burn technology, chasing every last drop of fuel economy. But Yamaha set the tone. Their outboards became the standard for commercial operators, fishing guides, and anyone who valued getting home over getting there first. In the world's busiest harbors and most remote islands, it was Yamaha's blue cowling you saw on the boats that never stopped working. For Japanese builders, reliability wasn't a feature, it was the baseline. Every improvement, no matter how small, was a step toward engines that felt less like machines and more like trusted companions. That philosophy stood in stark contrast to the American obsession with horsepower and glory. The rivalry wasn't just about who could go faster, but about whose engines would still be running after years of salt, sun, and hard use. In that quiet contest, Japanese precision started to turn heads, forcing the rest of the world to rethink what mattered most in an outboard. Mercury wasn't interested in building engines that just lasted. They wanted machines that survived the impossible. In 1957, Carl Kiekhaefer picked a remote, snake-choked lake deep in Florida, bought every acre, and named it Lake X. The world called it a secret base. Mercury called it a proving ground. Here, engineers ran boats around the clock, headlights blazing through the night, engines screaming for mercy. Operation Atlas was the opening act. 2 boats non-stop, 34.5 days, logging 50,000 miles, the distance around the planet, without a single planned stop. Mechanics swapped crews and refueled on the fly, all while keeping meticulous logs from the tower. If a gear case blew, they fixed it on the dock and sent it back out. If a prop shattered, another went on in minutes. Every failure was a lesson, every log strike a new test. Mercury's engineers learned to build gear cases that could take a hit from a submerged oak at 30 knots and keep going. They didn't just want to win races, they wanted to win legends. Dealers bragged about engines dialed in at Lake X. Owners swapped stories about catastrophic failures that ended with the boat limping home, still running. The company's myth grew with every endurance run, every blown power head, every 24-hour lap logged in those secret notebooks. The message was clear. American power meant engines that could take anything you threw at them and ask for more. But horsepower wars come with a dark side. By the early 1990s, Mercury's obsession with speed and spectacle collided with a new kind of challenge, a legal one. As Japanese brands started eating into American market share, accusations flew. In 1991, Mercury and other U.S. manufacturers filed complaints with the International Trade Commission, claiming Japanese rivals were selling outboards below cost and taking unfair advantage of government support. The case dragged on for years, with both sides lawyering up, executives testifying, and engineers forced to defend their designs in courtrooms instead of on the water. The 1994 Commission report landed with a thud. No material injury found, no tariffs imposed. Japanese engineering had passed the ultimate endurance test, not just on the lake, but in the halls of power. Meanwhile, Mercury's test logs kept stacking up, and their engineers kept pushing for more horsepower, more torque, more everything. But the world was changing. Rumors started swirling about new rules, emissions, noise, fuel. The next battle wouldn't be fought on the water or in the courts. It would be fought in the regulatory offices. And the old playbook of power at any cost was about to meet its toughest opponent yet. The EPA's final rule landed in October 1996, demanding a 75% cut in hydrocarbon and nitrogen oxide emissions from new outboards. The deadlines weren't gentle. By 1998, 1 in 5 engines had to comply. By 2001, every new outboard on the showroom floor had to meet the standard. No exceptions, no extensions. For manufacturers, the numbers on paper turned into a wall of costs. Industry analysts pegged the average retooling price at $40 to $60 million per company, just to get production lines ready for cleaner engines. For each model, the per-engine research and development bill could top $1,500 before a single unit reached a dealer. American plants built for volume and speed suddenly faced a mountain of technical debt. Carbureted two-strokes, the backbone of Johnson, Evinrude, and Mercury, were now liabilities. Every engine that failed emissions meant fines or forced buybacks. Dealers started to worry. A spokesperson for the National Marine Dealers Association warned that parts backlogs could stretch for months as makers scrambled to overhaul everything from pistons to fuel systems. The fear wasn't just about new engines. It was about the millions already on the water and who would keep them running when parts dried up or warranties got voided by the new rules. Meanwhile, market forecasts painted a grim picture. Industry reports from 1997 predicted a 30% drop in U.S. outboard sales if manufacturers couldn't deliver compliant engines fast enough. Export markets, once a safety valve, were closing the same regulatory net. For every month of delay, companies lost ground to Japanese brands whose 4-stroke and advanced 2-stroke models already met or beat the new U.S. limits. Inside OMC, the clock was ticking. Executives faced a choice: invest in a radical new technology and hope it could be rushed to market, or risk sliding into irrelevance as Yamaha, Honda, and Suzuki filled the gap. The pressure wasn't theoretical. It was baked into every quarterly report, every dealer call, every memo from the EPA. The cost of falling behind wasn't just money, it was survival. And as the compliance deadlines drew closer, the industry's margin for error vanished. OMC's engineers knew the risk the moment the first FIXT direct injection engines rolled off the line. The new system, licensed from a German inventor, looked perfect on paper, a silver bullet for the EPA's 1996 emissions crackdown. But the reality in the field was anything but. Early adopters reported engines that ran lean, then rich, then suddenly not at all. Mechanics opened up power heads to find scorched pistons, melted rings, and injector seats out of spec by fractions of a millimeter. It wasn't just a handful of lemons. By the 1998 model year, warranty claims poured in by the thousands. OMC's own logs from that summer show return rates spiking to double digits, with some dealers reporting that 1 in 3 FIXT-equipped Johnsons and Evinrudes came back with major failures before 100 hours. A former OMC mechanic remembers the chaos. Engines would smoke and knock at idle, then seize at full throttle. He kept a notebook. Every blown rod, every burned cylinder wall, every frustrated owner who just wanted to fish the weekend. The Mexico plant, built to ramp up production, couldn't hold the tolerances FIXT demanded. Parts arrived mismatched, pistons with the wrong alloy, injectors that wouldn't seal. Assembly lines ran overtime, but quality control lagged behind. Field fixes turned into recall campaigns. Lawsuits followed. Dealers slashed prices to move inventory, but resale values collapsed as word spread. The numbers tell the rest of the story. By late 1999, OMC's warranty reserve was depleted. Class action suits landed in court. The company's private equity owners scrambled for a buyer, but the books were a mess. Warranty costs outpaced sales, and no amount of dealer incentives could restore trust. In December 2000, OMC filed for bankruptcy, laying off over 7,000 workers and shuttering plants across the Midwest. The FIXT gamble, rushed to meet regulatory deadlines, had backfired on a scale the industry hadn't seen in decades. For the engineers who warned against cutting corners, the collapse was both personal and public, a lesson in what happens when pressure, pride, and flawed execution collide. The company that once defined American boating was gone, leaving behind a cautionary tale and a battered brand in need of rescue. When Bombardier Recreational Products took over the ashes of OMC, they didn't just patch up broken engines, they tore down the entire blueprint. The old FIXT system, haunted by burned pistons and warranty nightmares, was out. In its place, E-TEC. BRP's engineers started with the basics: tighter machining, better alloys, and a magnetically actuated injector that could fire with pinpoint timing every single cycle. Gone were the days of mismatched pistons and leaky seals. The new assembly lines ran under stricter controls, with every part traceable, every engine logged. On the test bench, E-TEC didn't just pass emissions, it beat them. EPA records from 2006 show E-TEC outboards running cleaner than the law required, with hydrocarbon and nitrogen oxide levels well below the 557 grams per kilowatt-hour standard. In independent trials, engines hit the water for 3,000 hours straight, then came apart for inspection. No melted rings, no seized rods, just routine wear, logged and measured. BRP's quality director kept a stack of these teardown reports, each one a quiet rebuke to the chaos of the FIXT era. Field results matched the lab. Charter captains in the Gulf ran E-TECs hard, logging seasons with nothing but oil and spark plugs. Mechanics who once dreaded the sight of a Johnson badge started to trust the new blue cowlin. Even the software got smarter. Adaptive controls fine-tuned fuel and oil delivery for every engine, compensating for real-world abuse and dirty fuel. The self-winterizing protocol meant one button press, no tools, no service call. For the first time in years, Evinrude owners had something rare: peace of mind. The old stigma faded, replaced by a new kind of pride. E-TEC didn't just erase the sins of the past, it set a new bar for what disciplined engineering could deliver. The story wasn't about redemption, it was about proving, hour after hour, that innovation could be trusted again. The sticker on the cowling says Mercury, but the block inside? Sometimes Tohatsu, built in Japan. For Yamaha, the badge might be blue, but the assembly line could be in Georgia. Dealers know the truth. National labels are just the start. Since 2001, Mercury's small four-strokes, everything under 30 horsepower, have come from Tohatsu's factories. The price sheet might list them as American, but the serial number tells another story. Yamaha's US models, especially mid-range units, often split their birth certificates between continents. The result? Boats in Florida, Texas, or Tokyo might be running engines assembled half a world away from what the logo suggests. For buyers, the old rules don't hold. Power is power, but now reliability and service matter just as much. A dealer round table lays it bare. Mercury's Verado costs more up front, but parts and labor are everywhere. Yamaha's resale value holds strong, but wait times for certain parts can stretch into months. Suzuki and Honda undercut on price, betting that value shoppers will trade a thinner service network for a lower sticker. One dealer flips open the service log: a Yamaha F-150, routine oil changes, 2,800 hours, still running smooth. Next page, a Mercury Pro XS, higher horsepower, more tech, but a steeper bill for the 300-hour service. It's not just about which engine lasts, it's about what it costs to keep it going when the hours pile up. Manufacturing lines have blurred, and so have loyalties. Mercury's 2021 launch of the V12 Verado, with its steerable gear case, grabbed headlines. But even that flagship borrows from digital control systems pioneered in Japan. Value now comes down to a mix: where the engine was built, how fast it can be fixed, and what kind of support stands behind the badge. For today's boater, the real difference isn't just in the horsepower. It's in the fine print, the warranty, and the dealer who answers the phone when something breaks. The rivalry isn't fading, it's just harder to spot through the haze of global production and price sheets. In the year 2000, OMC, once the world's largest outboard maker, filed for bankruptcy, ending nearly a century of American dominance in marine engines. This documentary has shown how American manufacturers built their legacy on horsepower and bold innovation, while Japanese brands like Yamaha and Honda focused on reliability and continuous improvement. The EPA's 1996 emissions mandate forced every company to adapt or risk collapse. Some records about early technical failures remain sealed, and the full financial impact of Mercury's 2001 production partnership with Tohatsu is still debated among analysts. Today, the line between American and Japanese outboards is blurred. Engines share parts, technology, and even assembly lines. Yet the evidence is clear. A commitment to precision, efficiency, and adaptability is what now drives the industry. As regulations and consumer demands continue to evolve, the story of these rival philosophies remains written in every engine on the water.